Hello everyone, I am the Lore Explorer, and this is Outer Wilds, a carefully handcrafted solar system open for you to explore. And in today's loop, we will be visiting Giant's Deep, the gas giant of the game. And despite the planet itself being entirely composed of water and gases, there's actually a decent bit to see on this ocean world. With hidden mysteries, islands freely floating around the ocean, and fun mechanics, we have our hands pretty full with this one. As always, this video will contain spoilers for Outer Wilds. I think if I had to choose one planet to visit in Outer Wilds, I would probably choose Giant's Deep. Staring at it from the outside, it's just like a big ball of green swirly stuff. A behemoth of a planet at 2 kilometers from pole to pole. It's slugging around in its orbit at 156 meters per second. And it's not really known what kind of gases composes its atmosphere, but she's thick and moving. The gas swirls around in pretty mesmerizing ways, and you can even see the polar vortex swirling around from space. Although the atmosphere sort of looks like a thick wall of gas, we are able to plop right through it. And once we do, there's water as far as the eye can see. Floating randomly throughout the oceans are a handful of islands giving amazing oceanside views. But the real fun to the planet comes in the form of these tornadoes. Anything that enters that cyclone will be launched to space, and that includes the islands. Giant's Deep doesn't have a natural moon of its own, but the Nomai must have felt bad for it, so they built the Orbital probe cannon as a companion. The real reason the Nomai constructed the Orbital probe cannon here is because of the aforementioned lack of moon, and how Giant's Deep, being so far out from the solar system, provides the best angles for launches into deep space. The Orbital probe cannon was an integral part of the Nomai's plan to locate the Eye of the Universe. It's an orbital platform designed to launch and track a probe dedicated to finding the Eye visually. But before the interloper exploded, killing all the Nomai, a few overzealous Nomai set the cannon's power to 11. And for one glorious moment, that cannon was spectacular. It's even cool to watch it launch from the inside and get the probe's angle just zooming off. So from here out, we're going to have to explore the orbital probe cannon in pieces for obvious reasons, but don't worry, they're mostly intact. Lore-wise, just a moment ago, this cannon had 3 rooms on it which are giant glass chambers, and each of these rooms had a function on the cannon. The first room is the control room. The second is the launch module, likely where they set the power way too high, and the third is the tracking module, meant to track the probe just fired. But this module has now broken off and is somewhere on the planet below. Before we go track down the tracking module, we should explore what we find here first. The control room is likely used to orient the whole craft and maintain its vital functions. A Nomai named Avens ran this place. Here we can find correspondence between the construction yard on Giant's Deep, as well as the launching module right next door. The Nomai have actually made each room 2 floors equipped with gravity crystal technology, allowing us to stay upright in this micro-G environment. Each room also has 2 projection poles, one for conversation and one for depicting the information the cannon holds. Heading up to the giant Nomai projection pole in the control module and reading the corresponding base rings tells us information about this cannon's purpose and what just happened here. It also gives us cool animations to depict all of that. The base rings holding text here give us a big hint on how to get into the launch module, as the explosion has closed the normal entrance, but it's fractured the window, exposing it to the vacuum of space. After doing a daring spacewalking and risking our lives, we can explore it. The control module seems to have been run by a Nomai named Mallow, but sadly, when we arrived there, we arrived just in time to find almost all of the information, including the giant Nomai projection pole and corresponding text, has been destroyed minutes ago by the launch. But just think about that. Our character and Hal have spent so much time building a Nomai translator tool, and literally the second we wake up on the tool's inaugural launch day, the first thing we do is watch a bunch of Nomai writing blow up via cannon before our very own multitude of eyes. And that's all we really find on the orbital probe cannon, I digress. To find the missing piece of it, though, we will have to explore the island below, and plopping down through the atmosphere, we see the inner layer of it is almost as mesmerizing as the outer layer. It's like a million tiny, perfect little clouds all grouped together. But trying to take our spaceship for a swim to see the core of the planet, we get stopped by a planet-wide current stronger than our rockets. Almost nothing we can do gets us through this current. So for now, let's explore the surface. The north pole of the planet is surrounded by a massive tornado that we can't penetrate from the outside, and it's not alone. We can usually find around 10 smaller tornadoes scouring the planet as well, launching everything in their path into space. And with that in mind, we should probably go check on Gabbro, who's on one of these crazy islands. And Gabbro being Gabbro, they decided to choose one of the islands made of rock that the Nomai didn't build anything on. Apparently, they prefer to rough it in the rain, and may be used to it, since they can keep a nice fire roaring in the rain, and the rain literally never stops here on Giant's Deep, so that's actually a pretty impressive feat. Their island is pretty typical though, some trees, a mountain, a beach, and some pretty flowers, but somehow, Gabbro makes it special. It's always fun to watch them get launched by a tornado while in their hammock, and they don't even miss a beat, literally. Next up, I think we will check on Bramble Island just to get it out of the way. This place is legit just a mess of ice and bramble vines, with a bunch of ghost matter thrown in there for good measure. But for the determined and super interested, you get rewarded with a single log from the legendary feldspar if you brave all of that. And if you're being super honest with yourself, it's totally worth it. Plus, the 2 frozen jellyfish are a pretty cool sight to see, though that is just about all there is to see on Bramble Island. The construction yard, on the other hand, is an unassuming but very interesting place to me. This is where the Nomai constructed the Orbital probe cannon, which when you think about it, is a pretty tough goal. They had to build objects bigger than the islands they had to build the objects on. But this isn't the first massive space-oriented craft the Nomai species has had to build. They know that if they build it in the ocean and let individual pieces float there, they won't really have to worry about weight or size. A bunch of giant rings are placed in the ocean, with gravity walkways built on them. This allowed the Nomai to put a piece of gravity cannon inside the rings, and would give them access to 360 degrees of the piece, allowing them to work on any piece at any time. They even seem to have little gravity wells attached to them, which would allow the Nomai to get just about anywhere they needed to be. In the room at the front of the construction yard, we can find what I'm calling a projection basin showing the cannon in all its tiny glory. Over on one of the regular walkways is a sort of schematic for the cannon as well. And though this island has gravity walkways everywhere, the Nomai here were not entirely safe from the tornadoes, and they took them a bit more seriously than Gabbro does. To prevent any danger, the Nomai constructed tornado shelters using gravity technology. These shelters not only kept you in place when you were launched to space, but they actually provided you with oxygen as well, so the Nomai would not have to wear their spacesuits while on the island, allowing them to relax. There's only one more island that freely floats around Giant's Deep, and that's what we in the know call Gabbro's Relaxation Beach. But really, it's Statue Workshop Island. And this is where the Nomai who would teleport to Giant's Deep would come, and for good reason. This island was another integral part of the Ash Twin projects. It seems so many Nomai worked on this that they constructed buildings on the surface to allow them to stay while working at. But the real work being done on the island is in its hollowed out center. This is where they would carve the Nomai statues we see throughout the game. I think a Nomai named Phlox was the master sculptor here, and Dawes was able to implement the storing technology into the statues here as well. It's a pretty significant and eye-opening location in the game, but come to think about it, a lot of places on Giant's Deep are. But most of them are pretty well hidden. It's time to go into the eye of the giant tornado and visit the 280-meter tall tower of Quantum Trials. We are lucky enough to be able to just fly our ship above the North Pole and plummet through the atmosphere, right into the eye of the storm. I think the size of Giant's Deep and this tornado made the Nomai feel inadequate, because they likely used an entire island's worth of material building this pillar to the clouds. But it really is a tower to be impressed by, and not only visually, but the entire building's goal was to impress upon you the knowledge that observing a quantum object makes it certain, and that viewing an image of a quantum object is the same as viewing the object itself. You go down floor by floor taking pictures of quantum objects and using them to get to your goal. It's actually a pretty interesting way to teach a player something in a game where the only advancement is knowledge. And at the end of the tower, you get greeted by a beautiful mural of 2 Nomai reaching out to the symbol of the quantum moon. Personally, I think this symbolizes the two different clans of Nomai who got trapped and separated in this solar system, and both of these clans had the quantum moon only to keep their sense of wonder going during this time of hardship. And I think the Nomai credit this in saving them, as without that, they may have given up hope. Something we learned at the construction yard has given us a bit of a clue on how to reach the core of this planet. One of the tornadoes on the planet happens to be spinning counterclockwise, and this will allow us to get below that impenetrable current running across the planet. Once through, we are greeted by a bunch of happy jellyfish, as well as a giant dark ball of what looks to be electricity itself. Really, it's just an ultra-dense form of water and gas that's been made this way by all of the pressure of the ocean. To get through the electrified layer, we have to make use of one of the jellyfish who have insulation from this electricity. This comes from the fact that jellyfish use it themselves to zap whatever else may be living in the ocean to eat them. Luckily, they let us swim up their tentacles and into the cavity where their head is? Anyway, not their stomach, and they don't eat us. But they let us ride below the current, and we are met with an unsuspected sight. At least in my opinion. A humongous coral reef, living under more pressure than anything in the solar system. I'd probably say it was dead, since it's sort of dark and shriveled looking, but the thing is still spitting out and blubbing out bubbles, so I don't know, must be alive. Our real goal for coming down here is the missing tracking module from the orbital probe cannon. It's now been flung under the current and is settled and resting on top of a coral branch, limb. I don't know, it's on some coral. We entered to see an almost identical copy of the other two modules, except this one is in surprisingly good shape for what it's gone through. And it holds a third statue connected to the Ash Twin project, which makes it sorta special. We find some logs between the crew of the cannon, and one log of Privet questioning their fellow crewmates' integrity and morality. But the really interesting thing here is the projection pool. As you guys may have guessed, the probe tracking module tracks the probe we see fire at the beginning of every loop. This projection pool shows you a few interesting things. First, it'll actively and in real time track the current trajectory of the probe in our solar system. Next, it'll create a weird pincushion that scared the hell out of me the first time I saw it, representing every path the probe has previously taken, which is around 9,334,000 or something. Lastly, it'll give you the coordinates to the ever-elusive Eye of the Universe, which is amazing. With these symbols in hand, you now know the one and final piece of the puzzle in the search for the Eye of the Universe. But with that, we've covered just about every inch of land on this water drop. But I told you there was a surprising amount of stuff to see on a planet that is made entirely of water and gas. I know we rode an island to space, but one of the things the Hearthians like to do is take a ride by and just jump out of their ding-dang spaceship and free fall into the ocean. They also hope really hard on the way down that they don't hit an island. And this is one of the main reasons that I think Giants Deep would be the planet I'd choose to visit. There'd be so much fun to be had here. Thanks for watching, and if you liked the video, maybe hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you really like the channel, consider becoming a member here by hitting the join button below. You'll unlock perks here on the channel as well as on the Discord, and you'll unlock a handful of live streams, which I hope to do more of soon. And as always, a special thank you to the members here on the channel. You guys are the real heroes. The old Explorer spaceships would have long run out of fuel and marshmallows if it weren't for you guys. But that's okay, cause I would have just hopped in a Nomai shuttle and ate cactus stew all day. Jokes aside, thank you guys so much for helping the channel. This is a lore explorer diving deep into the planets because it's an ocean world and I couldn't explore it any other way. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.